Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pick Up the Truth. Now, today, I'd like to go back into the time that the Freemasons created, invented, enslaved us in, and take a look at another flu that they manifested into reality. Or did they? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at and try to figure out. If the Spanish flu of 1918 was a real flu, or was it a psyop? Was there any actual physical evidence? But that's what we're going to find out. So we're going to start the video and take a look and see what they have to offer.
An estimated 500 million people infected, between 50 and 100 million dead, a world torn apart by war and by a strange, dead...
Okay, when they showed the dead, they showed a cartoon depiction of the dead in skeletons. So, yeah, to me, that's not proof that somebody died of this flu. Now, I've watched this video before, and you tell me if you can spot a real photo of anybody that's dead or deceased, or even looks sick. So, you let me know in the comments section if you see anybody, and we'll take a second look at it.
New disease. It swept across the world, leaving nowhere untouched. It was so deadly, rumors spread through the streets that the Black Death had returned. This was the Spanish flu of 1918, the deadliest pandemic of the 20th century. Epidemics have infected societies throughout history. Usually epidemics come and go, but some...
Now, are these supposed to be dead bodies? Mad like Mag would say, the photo's a little foggy and can't really tell what's underneath all the blankets. So, this is not our first rodeo with the PSYOP, so we're going to continue till we can find some real proof.
Truly stand out for their viciousness. In recent history, there has been no pandemic more devastating than the flu of 1918, sometimes called the Spanish flu or swine flu. It killed about 675,000 in the United States alone. The outbreak came in the midst of World War I, and the flu would actually kill more troops.
All Masonic signs and symbols, skull and crossbone, they have the cross. All Masonic signs, and this is a cartoon depicting the dead and the sick. No real evidence.
Than combat. The flu of 1918 was so deadly it killed more Americans than World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea.
Now, I know the Masons depopulate our brothers and sisters all over the world. And it's sad the way they do it. I mean, look at the soldiers that they recruit. Those soldiers are our boys and girls. The children that we nurture as, from babies, and we care for and we love very much. And we're supposed to give them to the people that control us. so they can manipulate them even further into the world that they control us in. I feel sorry for our brothers and sisters that were brainwashed into entering the armed forces to do the bidding of the people that manipulate the general population. I know it's not your fault because you have no idea of the big picture of what they're doing to everyone. But they manipulate our brothers and sisters in the military every day. Mind control, depopulation methods they put them through, experimentation, all the suffering, brainwashing them to kill other nationalities in different countries that are programmed to kill them as well. It's terrible how the Masons force their will upon our sons and daughters. And what they're being told is lies. There's no truth in what our boys and girls are being told they're fighting for. It's all a deception. I beg anybody that has family members in the military to bring them home. Bring them home and care for them and love them the best you can. We need to get our boys and girls back home and away from the military. We're waking up to what we're really living in, and we need to care for each other the best we can. And we just need to hold on to what's dear to us, and that's our brothers and sisters, no matter where they're at.
And the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. Yet Spanish flu was horrifying for even more reasons. It was very contagious, and it killed extremely quickly, sometimes in as few as 12 hours. It killed people in the prime of their lives, with the most victims being young, healthy people aged.
Now, they're showing these people as sick, and they look happy to me. I don't understand it. Is that the way we're looking today when they tell us we're in the middle of a pandemic, and when you're out on the street you see everybody acting normal and happy and going through the life they were programmed to go through? So, I mean, we have to look at the truth that they show us and see if it's truth or not.
20 to 40. Additionally, it killed some of its victims in bizarre, brutal ways, completely unlike a typical flu virus. Some symptoms actually...
Now here they show a pit full of skeletons. I don't see any flesh anywhere over here. And some of them don't even look like skeletons. I don't understand what they're trying to show us here.
Closely resemble the plagues, which killed millions in the Middle Ages. But scientists have analyzed the pathogen's genome and verified it was not Black Death, which killed millions in 1918. It was just the flu. This video will cover how the flu began and how it spread across the world, the bizarre symptoms that made it so deadly, and how the flu pushed society.
Is that a real picture or is that a drawing? if it's a real picture, it could just be of anyone sick in bed.
To the very brink of collapse. If the epidemic continues its mathematical rate of acceleration, civilization could easily disappear from the face of the earth within a few weeks. Victor Vaughn, Surgeon General of the Army.
Sounds like the same fear-mongering that's going on around the earth today. Do you think it's a coincidence? Or do you think it's by design?
October 1918. No one can be absolutely sure where the pandemic originated, but there...
And what's up with the bird masks? Is there any significance in it? If anybody knows, leave a comment below. And I could be totally off base here. I mean, some of you all might have had family that experienced the Spanish flu. I mean, if there's anybody out there that's had great-grandmothers or anyone like that tell stories about how they suffered from the Spanish flu, and if they, you of course you can believe your family members. I mean, that would be, good evidence for us to have if they actually were depopulating people at that time with this flu, which I'm sure they were. I mean, I'm sure they actually invent these flus and intentionally spread them around. But are they as severe as they want them to be? No, I don't think so. I think they exaggerate the numbers that they kill off. But these people are terrible. They see fit to do this to us. I mean, you can tell by this photo right here that they programmed even the people back in this time to be what they want them to be. They're all dressed similar. There's really no individuality. They force them to live in the ways that they want them to live. And look at even the buildings are designed and engineered by Masonic code, just like today. You'll look in any city or town and you're going to see Masonic coding everywhere. Everywhere, because they engineered and built these cities that enslave us. And you can see the programming in these people. Just like us today, with our cultures and the ways they give us to live by.
Several theories. In northern France, there was an outbreak of a flu-like disease at a British military base in 1917. The base was located in a swampy area with lots of waterfowl and pigs. New flu epidemics often arise when people have close contact with sick birds or...
Now, they're saying that the flu originated from birds and pigs. Now, like I know, that the earth wasn't designed to endanger or harm creation. It wasn't designed to kill off what it was created for. So, how are the birds and pigs going to contract this disease, and from where are they going to contract it from? Is it going to come up from the dirt? Is it going to be some mysterious form of bacteria that just manifested into reality 1 second? No, to be sure, if these if these flus really exist, which I don't know if they do or not, I can't say for sure without evidence, but I'm leaning to no, they don't exist. But if they really did exist, how could it jump from an animal to a human and run like wildfire in a human being and not continue to kill off the animals? I mean, our immune system's supposed to be superior to an animal, correct? So, how's this so-called virus going to jump from an animal with an inferior immune system to a human with a superior immune system? You tell me that. I have a problem understanding that one. And then it runs rampant in the humans with a superior immune system, and the animals, it just ceases to exist in them. So that tells you either the flu was created by the ones who control us to depopulate people, or it's a total psyop. One or the other, or maybe a little of both. But we have to consider the possibilities.
Pigs. There was a separate outbreak of respiratory disease among soldiers from Southeast Asia who fought in World War I from 1916 to 1918. Most flus start in Southeast Asia, and some historians argue the soldier may have brought a new virus to Europe. But historian John Barry makes the case in his fascinating book, The Great Influenza, that the flu may have originated on a farm in rural Kansas by jumping from infected...
Look how they program even the poor people to be. Even in their homes, you can see the Masonic pyramids on the roofs, which tells us they were created by Masonic ones.
Pigs to humans. Indeed, the first officially recognized cases of the Spanish flu emerged at a military base in Kansas. The U.S. had just entered World War I, and training and industry had ramped up at a rapid pace as the war...
So they're telling us that the Spanish flu, originated in a military base. And apparently it jumped from a bird and a pig into a human in the military and spread within the military base.
Machine fired up. But in rural Haskell County, Kansas, a war of another type was quietly beginning. Haskell County was in the grip of a deadly outbreak of what seemed to be a mysterious new disease. People in the community, farmers mostly, may have caught the new disease when a pathogen from sick pigs jumped species and began infecting humans.
Now you can see that the children were depicted in the mask just like they would love us to wear today. And nobody in these pictures looks sick at all. I mean, they all look like they're well and they're working.
The new virus, the swine flu, was shockingly contagious and extremely deadly. A local doctor was terrified by the death toll of the new virus and contacted the U.S. Public Health Service for advice. His concern was noted, but nothing else was done. After all, it was a tiny...
Here we go. Even back then, they had the programmed pamphlets brainwashing you to prevent disease, careless spitting, coughing, and sneezing. And they're trying to tell people how to act every step of the way.
Rural backwater. How could it spread far in such a sparsely populated area? Slowly, the virus began to die down as it ran out of new people to infect. Perhaps it would have stopped there had the times been different, but 1918 was the perfect breeding ground for a worldwide pandemic. In early 1918, every military base was teeming with young men training for war. The military hurried to build new barracks, hospitals, training areas, and facilities to support the influx of hundreds of thousands of men. Some of these men were volunteers, and some had been drafted. The strange new disease was just dying down in Haskell County when a few young men left there, headed to Camp Funston, Kansas, for training. Camp Funston, located at modern-day Fort Riley, was already over capacity, with 56,000 young men training for war. There hadn't been time to build enough barracks for all of them.
You see that? 56,000 brothers. Our brothers. They were training them to kill other brothers and sisters. This is the thing we have to stop doing to each other. They manipulate our lives, the way we think, the way we act, the way we feel. They get us to do things against creation itself and against humanity.
It was the coldest winter on record east of the Rockies, yet many men were sleeping in tents without any heat and only thin blankets. In an effort to keep them all warm, the commander ordered all the men to move into barracks, violating the health and safety rules that dictated how much space each soldier should have. Inside the barracks, men huddled around stoves trying to keep warm. The men from Haskell County must have crowded in close too, even as they began to cough and sneeze. That's all it took. In the overcrowded barracks, the flu spread rapidly.
So they're saying they got the flu by standing so close and coughing and sneezing. Do you see anybody in distress? Or we have to remember, back in those days, it took a long time to take a photograph. So it's not like you can just push a button and you take a picture. You have to stand there for quite a while. And none of the gentlemen in that picture looked like they were in distress.
It only took 6 days for the outbreak to begin. The men from Haskell County arrived on February 28th. Less than 1 week later, men began flooding into sick call. Within just a few weeks, the flu swept across the base, sickening thousands and killing between 38 and 50. It was a high death rate for the flu, but it was nothing compared to what was coming next. The virus was about to mutate and become much, much worse. Flu viruses are constantly mutating, and sometimes there will be a really big shift, or a virus that usually affects only animals mutates so it can infect people too. When that happens, it can be very deadly. The flu comes in waves.
Now, they say the flu comes in waves. So, if the corona psyop is going to be anything like the Spanish flu psyop of 1918, then this just may be the first wave. But as you can tell by this photograph, if you can take any truth from it, I don't see anyone sick or falling out on the ground from the flu. It looks like everybody's just walking around in the sun, enjoying what they created for them.
That's why we have a flu season. Although it may seem like a bad flu is done, the flu can hide for a while, or go infect people in a different part of the world and then return even worse. In the case of the 1918 flu, 3 waves of flu devastated the world. The first wave wasn't too bad, but the second and third waves were extremely dangerous. The outbreak...
Now see, there you go, guys. Could it be that the first wave is a test And then the second and third wave is where they get us with the real disease to depopulate us. Could that be possible, or is it all a scam? Interesting.
Camp Funston came just at the end of the flu season in the United States. So the first wave infected a lot of people, but then faded away. The military wasn't worried. They were grappling with a far more deadly outbreak of measles at the time. The flu virus seemed to fade away, but really it just went abroad to take on a world at war. It stalked into camp when the day was damp and chilly and cold, with a hand that was clammy and bony and bold, and its breath was icy and moldy and dank, and it killed so speedy and gloatingly greedy that it took away men from each company rank. The Flu, Private Josh Lee, 1919.
Now, they're going to have us believe that a private wrote this and it managed to find its way in history. The history they recorded for us. It could be. Or it could be a whole bunch of bullshit that they want us to believe, which is probably more the case.
Nearly all the ships carrying American troops to war arrived at the port in Brest, France. In April of 1918, just as the flu outbreak was dying down at Camp Funston, an epidemic began in Brest and slowly began spreading throughout northern France. Despite the illness spreading in the city, more and more troops poured in. Healthy men would land, become infected, and then ship out to new duty stations and to the front line, carrying the disease through every small town and hamlet through which the armies traveled. The flu tore across France and followed the front line.
Now they're saying that the army was infected, and now the army, wherever it goes, is going to infect everywhere in the entire world.
Lines into Belgium and the Netherlands. It jumped across the lines of war and began infecting the German army, actually affecting the outcomes of battle since so many troops were too sick to fight. It jumped from the German army to the German people. By May, it had reached Italy, where it crossed the Mediterranean and surged into North Africa. It also arrived in England by May, riding back on boats with troops heading home. Infection and death rates began to skyrocket in Spain and Portugal. The flu gained its name, the Spanish flu, from the early infection and high mortality rate in Spain, where reported 8 million died in May. Spain was neutral in World War I, and as a result, it was one of the only countries that was reporting the news without strict government censorship. Most countries didn't want to reveal to their enemies that they were battling an epidemic and didn't want to affect their people's morale, so the governments pressured the media to hide.
Now you see the same things that you see today. They closed the schools. They closed the churches. Well, I don't think they closed the churches over here yet, but it could become a reality soon. They do a lot of things to spread fear amongst the people.
And downplay the severity of the virus. However, in neutral Spain, the press was free to report the news accurately. Newspaper headlines in Spain screamed of an epidemic that was killing millions, while other countries only whispered of the flu. The world believed the flu was worse than Spain.
Now, they say this flu was killing millions, but they don't show pictures of the dead. I find that interesting, and I find it's the same today. Not like I'm trying to be gruesome or gory or disrespectful to the dead. We all know how selfish and inconsiderate the media is when they want to be, because all the shit that they tell us anyway is lies. But we know how they'll show us a dead body, on the drop of a dime. but they refuse to show us any physical evidence of what they claim is going on.
When in actuality, Spain was the only one talking about it at first. The flu continued spreading beyond Western Europe. By July, it had jumped to Scandinavia and Greece. The same month, the flu crept its way into a tense Russia, where the Tsar and his family had just been executed, and the Bolsheviks were battling with other factions to...
Now, they say the flu crept its way into Russia, but they don't tell us how.
see who would control the future of Russia. A boat filled with 6 sailors arrived in Mumbai, India at the end of May. First, a few dock workers reported sick. Then workers at the next docks became ill. And then men at the nearby warehouses got sick, and so on, into the city. Ships left those same infested docks and spread to other ports in Asia. Sick people boarded trains in Mumbai and spread the disease like wildfire along the railroad lines, up into the subcontinent and continental Asia. The flu showed up in China around the same time.
See how it keeps spreading from country to country with no explanation? Now, the military was spreading it before. Now all of a sudden just random people are spreading it, picking it up. I mean, it jumped all the way to India from Europe. How? They don't tell us that.
Spreading inland from a dock in Shanghai. By June, it had arrived in Singapore, a world trade hub where the flu infected the dock workers and spread to the local population. From the bustling docks, sailors carried the flu south into Indonesia and north into Malaysia and Thailand, where it continued to spread. By July, it had reached sub-Saharan Africa, with infected sailors who arrived at the ports. It entered West Africa from ships arriving in Freetown, Sierra Leone. It infected Eastern Africa via the port in Mombasa, Kenya. Ships arriving into Cape Town set the virus loose in South Africa. From these ports, influenza ripped its way across the continent, devastating the population. By July, it had also reached Peru and begun spreading across South America. By August, it had returned to North America. By October, it had reached New Zealand and Japan. By November, a lethal outbreak was surging across Colombia, Argentina.
Now, with limited transportation anywhere and limited technology, how in the world would this spread all around the earth? How? How would it spread all around the earth? And how would they even know it? I mean, come on, let's get real. How would they even know this information unless they created it? I mean, back in 1918, you can't just get on a plane and fly anywhere you want. I mean, you can get on a ship, I'm sure, but we all know that it wasn't easy to get around from country to country. And I want you to take a look at all these names. Take a look at all the names of the countries. They named all this land. They took it away from the people that lived there. They named the land and took it away from them. Took it away and sold it back to them and made them a slave in it. It's terrible what they do to us. We just have to ask ourselves, do we want to continue being enslaved in the world that they created for us? Do we want to continue being the people that they want us to be? Or do we want to wake up and be who we're really supposed to be? Be free. Regain your free will. break away from the programming that they manipulate your mind and soul with. We can do it. And we can come together to stop feeding this system that programs us every day. We can do that too. And we can help each other survive without it. We can help each other survive without this system that steals our land and gives it the names and gives it the laws to control us in. We can do better than this. We can bring this system down to its knees. But it's going to take all of us helping each other, finding ways to survive without their ways, without their programming, without their brainwashing. Find out ways to survive even without their poisoned food. We're going to try. And I know you guys are going to try too, because we all love each other. And we look out for each other. And I love you guys. You take care of yourself.